This is Hustle and Pro with Kelly Walker. Join Kelly as she talks sports with players, coaches, organizers, and entrepreneurs from Pee Wee League to Pro. Now here's your host, Kelly Walker.
Welcome to Hustle and Pro, changing the outcome. That's what we are talking about today. This is the Game Changers episode. I asked my friend Oliver Barron to help. How are you, Oliver?
I'm good, Kelly. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for joining us. So let's do what we do here on Hustle and Pro and do a couple quick hits to get to know you a little bit. Who's your favorite team?
I would say St. Louis Cardinals, baseball, obviously.
Is baseball your favorite sport to watch?
It isn't, actually. I've just been a Cardinals fan for most of my U.S. life, so I grew up overseas primarily.
Where'd you grow up?
So I was born in South Africa. I lived in Hong Kong and Singapore, and I'm from an English father, so my sports as a youth were primarily the English sports like cricket and rugby and soccer.
That you played?
I did, yeah.
You played cricket and soccer?
And rugby.
And rugby.
Yeah.
Oh, rugby.
Yeah. Not for extended periods of time, but I definitely played in a season or two in all of those. Soccer more, through my freshman year in high school until we moved to the U.S.
So what's the sport that you'd say you've played the most?
Soccer, probably, yep.
And is that one of your favorites still?
It is. I mean, World Cup time, obviously, that's the most glorious time of, every 4 years, right? So definitely, but as far as following the pro leagues during the professional seasons, a little bit difficult, I think, just having to have, the particular channels and things to watch those games.
Yeah,
so,
it's not always easy to follow
exactly.
all the English Premier League and Champions League soccer all the time. My husband tries, so I'm sure that you wish you had more time to watch that all weekend, too. At all hours of the day, right?
Absolutely.
So what is the farthest distance you've ever traveled to play sports or to watch sports?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I guess if we're measuring from where we're sitting today, it would be Indonesia. I played soccer there when I was living in Singapore, but so that's actually a very short distance. So, but maybe that's an answer to your question.
Short distance from where you were living at the time, but far from here.
Right,
that's
exactly.
Probably one of the farthest I've ever had someone say. And so then, I know we're going to talk about game changers today, but if you had to pick one athlete overall who was like a favorite of yours, who would it be?
Yeah, that's easy, actually. Michael Jordan.
Okay.
So we moved to the U.S. in '89, and so he had just, 3 years into his career, and you were either a Bulls fan or you were not, right, at that time. And so I was a huge Michael Jordan fan. He was amazing.
He is definitely a game changer.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to talk about, right? So a game changer is, I guess it could mean anything to anybody, but it's really like a shift, someone who changes the course of doing something or how you see something. And like in sports, it's really players who change the game, right? It could be good or bad.
Sure.
While I was brainstorming to talk to you, I thought, man, some of these are not great connotations of game changers because sometimes people spoil the game or, I don't know, for whatever reason. Like there's a particular baseball name on here that might be a negative perception sometimes. But let's go through and see who you think some of the game changers are in sports.
Sure.
So how do you want to tackle this? Do you have a list for me?
I kind of do, yeah.
Okay.
In my head a bit. With all apologies to Michael Jordan, my favorite athlete of all time, I'm going to sort of go to a more modern player, I think. Maybe it'll be more relevant for your audience. I don't want to get too old school here, right? But Steph Curry.
Steph, yep.
And I think, obviously, the thing that stands out, immediately with him is he's basically revolutionized the long-distance game, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe fans like myself who loved the Jordan era and loved, sort of the big man in the post and all of that, he's really just kind of killed the game, if you will, because he's so good from long range. But he's definitely a game changer just because of what he's done with the three-point shot,
Yep. And off the court, too, I think he is. People see him differently than sort of the eras before him and basketball players. Or I don't know, maybe it's just me that sees him differently.
Yeah.
But he's, and he's a family sport, right? So his dad and his brother are also basketball players,
exactly.
were and is Seth. But he just there's something different about him, right? The way he talks to people and treats people and family, I don't know, all these things where he just sort of has a different persona than some of the guys who came before him, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's probably a lot to do with the current age of basketball. I think of like the Pistons, the Nasty Boys, right? And, the Karl Malone, famous jagged-edged elbows and sort of the really rough game, right, back in the day, Bill Lambiers. I probably can name all the Pistons, right, because and obviously Malone wasn't, but being a Bulls fan. So, yeah, I think he's like a gentleman, to your point, of sports today. I don't even know if I've ever seen him talk trash, perhaps, maybe, or sort of, there's absolutely no, Steph rules, right? Like there were Jordan rules, right? Or
right.
So he's just
a good role model.
He's a great role model, absolutely. And he's created some really memorable moments in sports, and I think it dates back to obviously NCAA tournament time, when he was at Davidson. I mean, people quickly heard, hey, there's this really thin, lanky, guy, and he's just killing it, because he was so dominant,
So speaking of thin, lanky guys, and also in this market, you got to say Dirk for longevity, right?
Yeah.
As far as a game changer, especially when we're in the world of everybody says, I like basketball, but I don't follow a team, I follow a player nowadays. So, but Dirk is different than that.
For sure.
Because he was a one-team guy.
Yeah.
And now that he's officially done, you can say that. He's not one of these guys that was a one-team guy and then moved at the last minute because there was some other opportunity or contracts went the wrong way or something like that. So I see him, because I'm a homer, as a game changer in basketball. Yeah. Do you?
I totally do. I think, that would have been the obvious answer. I probably should have, in the market we're in, from a basketball perspective. I mean, there's no question, he's probably 2 or 3 now in total points for his career. Obviously, he's retired now, but
he got that last one. I feel like he got one more number up there the last 1 or 2 seasons. So there's not many ahead of him. No. I was going to say 4 or 5. But
sorry, you're probably right.
We'll fact check that later.
Yeah, Jordan's 2, I think, and then you probably got Wilt anyway. So better not get into the stats of that. But
we could do that another episode.
Yeah, exactly.
So any other basketball players you want to throw out there?
No, I think, as a game changer, he's the one that really stands out just because of, like I said, him just changing the game. And so everybody now is looking, right, to shoot from 30, feet, beyond the three-point
literally,
line, right?
It's moving back. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I know the three-point line, probably for the traditional basketball fan, is, sort of a modern, right, gimmick, if you will, of the game. But I think the point is the guy can hit from pretty much anywhere, inside of half court, right? And just with finesse. Consistency. Yeah.
And finesse and smooth. Yeah.
Exactly.
Who else you got?
So this is a more recent player too, but so Patrick Mahomes from an NFL perspective.
I'm a Texas Tech gal.
Perfect.
So I love Pat Mahomes.
Yeah. So, and I think, so I'm a big fantasy footballer, and so, we're supposed to distinguish, of course, right, between fantasy and real life, but this guy is, statistically, right, has just put up some unbelievable numbers. I know
quickly
his career.
Too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking up some of his stats, and just even in college, right, so you talked about Tech, and I think, he had a game where he passed for 734 yards.
Wow.
Really? Honestly?
Really?
Yeah, apparently. And then just thinking about, what he did in his rookie year, it's pretty remarkable, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's matched, stats with some of the all-time greats, right? Like Brady, I think, in as far as how many touchdowns he's thrown in a season, and yards as well. So
I love it because a lot of quarterbacks come out of college and everybody thinks they're going to be the one that can make the jump.
Yeah.
But most of the time, they're not going to be at the top of the list that rookie season or the next. But he just came out and never faltered.
Exactly.
I mean, so when we're recording this, he's a little injured right now, right? So hopefully when this airs, he's back on track and
for sure.
And doing his thing again because he is fun to watch.
Yeah.
And another good role model guy.
For sure.
Yep.
Absolutely. I think everybody looks up to him. Yeah, a couple of the stats that I was thinking that just really distinguish him as a game changer so early in his career. So, basically he's the only quarterback to throw for over 5,000 yards in a season, both college and the NFL.
Oh, wow.
Ever. Of all the massive passers, right, of all time. That's pretty wild.
Thanks to that Texas Tech offense.
No, that's true. That's
not
helpful.
Everybody had the chance to do that.
Yeah. Exactly. And then, when I mentioned Brady and Manning, so the stats there are basically, they're the only players in NFL history to throw 50 touchdown passes in a single season.
Oh, wow.
So that's wild, right, for a guy who's just new to the league, right?
Man. Think of what we're going to be saying about him in a few more years.
Absolutely.
Once he's had even more time to rack up those stats. So you mentioned somebody a couple times who's definitely on my game changers list for football. I mean, some people like him, some people don't, but it doesn't matter. Tom Brady is definitely up there, and just the amount of consistent, playing and winning. I mean, nobody else can win that as much as he does, and as long as he has.
Without a doubt,
His secretive anti-aging tricks.
Exactly. Yeah, it's amazing. He's a better athlete now than basically when he was in the combine, right? They have that really fantastic footage of him running, the 40 and slower than some of the offensive linemen, or whatever the, dig was on him that made him fall so far, right? And now I think, he's on, I don't know if he's on like an all plant-based diet and stuff, but the guy's a specimen, right, for
how to do it, yeah.
And
maybe
longevity.
he was like a pool shark. Maybe he threw his combines and everything back then just so he could come back and surprise everybody now.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
Well, in talking about him, I do think game changer wise in the sport of football, back to longevity, is Belichick. Just because, again, he's winning longer at the same place than a lot of people are. So
without a doubt. Yep. The team that everybody hates, but I think if we could all switch with that stable sort of, system, right, of continuous winning in Super Bowls, and I mean, as a Cowboys fan, I would take that model in a second, and Belichick in a second.
Speaking of Cowboys, do you have any other football guys on your list?
No, okay. I was going to,
So, because I'm a homer, again, I have to say, like, from my personal experience as football game changers, the triplets, just because, like, that's just the iconic who I think of when I think of football and change the game here in Dallas, right? So, I mean, I love Troy and love that Troy's still in the picture, and I hear him on the ticket and see him or listen to him all the time on broadcasts. And Michael and Emmett, I just love those guys, and I think them together as the triplets was a game changer.
No doubt. I mean, you've got with Aikman, and this is before my NFL watching career, but as a Cowboys fan now, I've had to sort of go back and watch, right? There's no question, like, if you put Aikman in, like, the run and shoot of the Oilers at the time, he would have been throwing, for thousands and thousands of yards, right? But that was just not the system he was in. And then you had Emmett, of course, the all-time rushing leader. But it's funny when you said Dallas Cowboys triplets, because my history in Dallas doesn't go back beyond 2004, the triplets for me is either, Romo,
the newer
Dez,
world.
right,
Yeah.
And then even, right, I feel like we have a current triplets, perhaps, and obviously with Amari Cooper, that's a new triplets, right? It's not even a full season yet, but.
Yeah, and I see, when you see, it's hard not to see Emmett out there when you see Zeke out there running.
For sure.
There's just a few similarities, right?
Yep.
I got one more football one I want to mention real quick. On the field, sure, but off the field, I feel like J.J. Watt has changed the game in the way people that aren't so much football fans paid attention to football a little bit in the last several years.
No doubt. Yeah, he's so big and dominant, to your point, as a football player, but the guy has such a personality, right? I think, the huge weather issues, right, in Houston, I think he basically just thought he was going to say something and raise a bit of money, and then it ended up just absolutely blowing up, and I can't remember the exact number they ended with, but yeah, he's got...
Me neither, but it was a lot.
It was
impactful.
For sure.
If nothing else, it changed what was happening there in his town, which is amazing, and
exactly.
I just feel like people paid attention to that.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, he's larger than life. He feels like either a WWE personality, in a sense, or even like maybe your most polished politician. Like he can do it all,
but
right?
But the good guy.
Yeah, that's right. The one with character, if there is one.
Right. So, okay, who's next on your list?
Yeah, so this one for me, so I wanted to try to get to a lot of the sports that I love and follow. So Serena Williams, I think, and so when I followed tennis my whole life. I didn't mention it as a sport that I actually played, but I did play tennis, and so I've followed it probably definitely my entire life. And so when I think about her, when I started watching tennis, it was kind of like when you get to around the age of 27, Martina Navratilova notwithstanding, 27, 28, 29, you're kind of towards the end of your tennis career, but she's just totally blown that theory out of the water, right? She's like winning tournaments in her, mid 30s. She won an Australian Open, 2 months pregnant, right? And then her stats speak for themselves. She's just got unbelievable, sort of statistics, right?
And I would think or do you have statistics?
I do.
Go
yeah.
for it. Okay.
No, so some of the things I was looking at, is so this speaking to her longevity. We could go to almost any category of how, what a game changer she is, but she's won a slam in 3 different decades.
Wow.
A grand slam in 3 different
And we're
decades.
about to join start a new decade.
I know. She'll do it for sure. She's at the top of her game.
Wow.
Yeah, no question.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really
Especially for such a physical sport that wears your body down
no
like
doubt.
that.
Yep,
Wow.
exactly. Yeah.
The only thing I would add to that is changing the sport by way of audience.
Yeah.
And just opening it up to a whole new world of people that might not have been watching it before.
Yeah, exactly. There's no question, I sadly I can recall, obviously there's been Arthur Ashe, and this may be where you're going, earlier in sort of, pivotal in changing the sports landscape. But I think, she absolutely, I think just, the type of player she is and some of the athletes we've mentioned too, sort of have a farther, like Steph too, they're almost like, sort of cultural figures, right? Too, that kind of make them even put that, sort of solidify their game changer.
Yep. Like with Serena, I feel like it's the girl power thing.
Yeah. That's true too.
There's probably way more little girls really into tennis and watching tennis because of her than there ever have been.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Definitely a game changer. Who else you got?
Yep. So this is probably a little bit of a homer pick. Well, not a little bit of a homer pick, but it definitely is. But I felt like I might need to educate some of your American League, Texas Ranger fans here.
Oh, okay.
And sadly, but this is probably going to be a little bit of a sore spot, right, when we think about World Series. But Albert Pujols. Mm-hmm. So Albert Pujols, being a huge Cardinals legend, right? But I think what people don't realize is some of the things that he had done in his career, like. In the first 10 years of his career, he basically hit 30 homers, 300 batting average, 100 RBIs for 10 straight, and 100 runs scored for 10 straight seasons, which has not been eclipsed
I didn't know that.
or achieved by anybody.
That's some consistency.
Right? Yeah.
That you don't see much with
For
that
sure.
much consistency.
Absolutely.
Batting 300 and, what did you say, 30 home runs?
Yeah, 30 home runs, more than 30 home runs every season in his first 10 seasons.
Wow.
Because
Because people will get pops.
Yeah.
A few seasons here and there, but to have it that long, that's...
Exactly.
When did he finish playing?
So he's still playing. He's with...
Oh,
yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah, the Angels.
I thought he retired recently.
No, yeah, so I think this may be his 19th season. He's basically, obviously there's a couple of steroid users ahead of him, right, and like homers and RBIs, A-Rod and Bonds, right? But he's basically in the top 5, let's say, in homers and RBIs and things of that nature. So he's definitely a game changer.
Yeah.
The way he hits, too, I've read things about him, too, where people have indicated, he's maybe one of the better hitters ever in history, and if there's some baseball fans, that are listening, they would know the stats, right? Like the WAR, the OPS, and some of the categories where he's just like pretty close to off the charts. Yeah, totally dominates, especially in this era as well, So I mean, he's in categories with like Babe Ruth, he's in categories with like Lou Gehrig, just some of the all-time greats. So
awesome.
Yeah,
I didn't realize.
Yeah.
I never followed him that closely, so I didn't realize that he was that dominant. So I know you mentioned Barry Bonds, and so like I said earlier, not everybody's a game changer in the way you might want to think originally, but like I did think of Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire, just kind of back in the day, like that, just sort of catapulting home run competitions amongst each other in midseason to really make people pay attention to that. Back when was that? I don't know. Like
it's true. In the 90s, maybe.
Yeah, you might. I was like, you might not have lived here.
I should. Yeah.
And then I think of Pete Rose and folks like that have just changed how the game is, the competition of the game, and how the game is managed and coached and those kinds of things. So I think he's one. My first baseball on my baseball game changer list. My first one is Jackie Robinson.
For sure.
I just love Jackie Robinson's story, and every time I'm at the ballpark, I will never probably look up and see the 42 sign again. Hopefully they don't take that off. I don't know. Maybe they will. I don't know. But he's got his over third base foul line, I think, is his little placard. But I just like him as a game-changing story in the history of the sport.
For sure. And to your point with this number 42, I think it's been retired, right? Like, you can't wear it on it. May need to be fact-checked here, but I think it's been retired by all Major League Baseball teams,
I'm
right?
going to think you're right. And my favorite day is Jackie Robinson Day on the baseball field when everybody's wearing 42.
Yeah.
You do a double take, and then you just realize, wow, I mean, that is how powerful his impact on the sport is.
Absolutely.
That everybody out there honors him all at the same time.
No doubt.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what else? Who else?
So probably, when we think about game changers, probably should, there needs to be names like Muhammad Ali and whatever, but Tiger Woods, I mean, just unbelievable player, right? I think, I'm not even a golf fan per se. I don't play, just don't have the patience, but he makes me want to be a golf fan, right? And obviously when he was sort of, down right in the middle back end of his career, right? It's like just people weren't watching the tournaments and stuff like they were when he was playing. So definitely a game changer. I think his sort of accomplishments early in his career speak for themselves. He's definitely in my mind a game changer.
Yeah. For sure. Brought a whole new element, I think, to the sport, a new age group of people, and got everybody excited again watching what he was able to accomplish. And his story of being off and then being back on, and gosh, this last year, his last season. I mean, I know overall it's probably not what he wanted, but when he was competing to still stay in some of those majors, I mean, people were glued to the TV again just to see. I don't know if they're rooting against him or for him, doesn't matter.
No.
But they were watching.
Yeah, exactly. And, when I think of Woods, I mean, we could go over all the great accomplishments of his career, but, it's that 2005 Masters where, it's the final round and, it's his iconic red shirt, right? It's the 16th hole, I think, and he's got a one-shot lead, basically, but, his opponent basically hit a tee shot that's, like, in the best position for him, right? And then Woods is, like, on the outside of the green. And it's just like this impossible trick shot that he has to basically hit. And I think, he chips it and hits it like 20 feet, right, north, if whatever, left of the hole, essentially. And then it just rolls and rolls and rolls and then sits on the lip, right? And then it's almost like the crowd
breathe,
the crowd just like somehow willed that ball, right? And then it just drops in.
It's like a movie.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And so I kind of feel like, and then that really iconic fist pump, and then, he looked like a linebacker playing golf too, like just this big dude, and then his numbers speak for himself. I think, he's just right up there, right? Or just maybe like 3 or so away from all-time, records, right?
I know. I don't know how much he's got left or not, but I'll be watching to see. Okay, so for somebody who's, soccer was one of your main sports, you have not thrown out soccer names yet.
I know.
You got any on your list?
You go first.
Surely. Well, I mean, mine is super obvious.
Yeah.
People like Messi.
Yeah.
Just because I love watching him play.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, let me go back and who else? And I am not the soccer. I don't know everything about everybody who's ever played soccer, so I don't even want to pretend that. But like people who I remember and like just play differently, like Ronaldinho, the way he just dribbles and play, like all the more trickery and different things. But I just will never forget. I think you can go watch all the YouTube videos forever. I can watch him play.
Yeah.
And this is so like American, but David Beckham, like when he came to the MLS,
sure,
it changed the way people in America at least started paying attention a little bit more. I know it's still got a long ways to go, but that changed the American landscape of soccer, and it opened the gate for others to do the same. I mean, we went to a game in Frisco this year with Wayne Rooney, and I mean, almost every time somebody comes in now to Frisco to play FC Dallas, there's a really big international superstar on the other end of the bench, and they're done probably. Close to being done with their career, but they're still out there competing with our guys, and it's fun to watch. And so, I don't know. I think of Beckham as that game changer to bring people here, and then on the flip side, Pulisic bringing our players to Europe. And then I hope there's more FC Dallas guys that follow in his path, like I think Paxton Pomacall and some of my favorite guys here. But so Pulisic is kind of the most recent, but those are kind of my probably low-hanging fruit names. Who do you got?
No, I unfortunately, I can't differ much. My dad's actually English, so I was trying to think of, he probably would want me to say, an English all-time great. My mom's German, and, one of the German players that sort of just, I think, recently retired, Bastian Schweinsteiger, I think was, just kind of a player that I really admired. I saw him score goals, that are just like were trick shots, right, in like big spots in like World Cups and things, but Lionel Messi, I know it's probably the easiest answer, but
sure.
It's amazing. Sometimes when I see him dribbling the ball, I feel like, it's like trying to catch a chicken, on a soccer field. He's so elusive,
so
and
quick.
And so adept, with the ball. I can't recall if it was, sort of the last World Cup or not, but he basically was presented with like a really long field pass that he was able to sort of catch on his foot, right, and from like 30, 40 yards, right, and tap it in the goal, so he
makes it look like nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Which in reality is it's incredibly so hard to do.
Exactly. He's the one that stands out for me, I think, and you could say Pelé, and you can say so many other, but for sure, I agree with you on him. I really, he's kind of in a league of his own for myself.
Yeah.
And Beckham too, the whole bend it like Beckham, and somebody had said to me one time that they thought David Beckham was overrated, and I said, overrated because he looks like, a GQ model. And,
right, because he's in the news a lot, and his wife, mean, maybe they meant overdone, just overexposed,
perhaps. Yeah. But I think, if you're looking at him as maybe being, the best player, I don't know if people were saying he was necessarily the best player, but he was a complete player, and could play sort of, obviously in every facet of the game. So I think he's a game changer for sure, with what he's accomplished too.
Me too. So, okay, do you have anybody else you need to get out there before we wrap up?
That's all I had to get off my
it.
chest. Yep, that's... Yeah.
We have some mutual game changers, of course, but then some that I hadn't thought of. So thanks for coming by today.
You're welcome. Thank you, Kelly.
And we can hop on again to cover fantasy football next fall, right?
That'll work.
To see who you've got going on there.
Sure.
And then what else were you saying? Oh, the Bulls.
Yeah, we could anything. Yeah.
I don't know how to talk Chicago basketball, but
no, right? Yeah, we'll do that.
I'll let you do that.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you for listening to Hustle and Pro today. So however you're listening to us, subscribe so that you will get alerted about our episodes each week.